Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going on an absolutely epic, chronological journey to answer one of the most profound questions about our species. How exactly did humans go from communicating in basic, reactionary grunts to engaging in the incredibly complex conversations we're having today? It's a massive story, blending biological evolution, environmental adaptation, and global history.
So to really appreciate this journey, we kind of have to start by looking at where we are right now. Just think about this massive number, 7,100. According to linguists, that is the estimated number of distinct languages currently spoken on Earth today. It is a staggering testament to the sheer diversity of human communication.
But wait, here's where it gets absolutely wild. Prepare for a really sharp contrast. This tiny number, just 23 languages, accounts for more than half of all the spoken words generated by the entire global population today. No way, right? How did we get to a point where our communication is so incredibly diverse, yet simultaneously concentrated in just a few dominant tongues?
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1, the biology of speech, anatomy of 800 sounds. Well, long before we could trade goods or, write poetry, our bodies actually had to change shape to accommodate what linguists call the three main criteria for language. First up, you need fine motor control. Humans are uniquely equipped with vocal cords capable of producing over 800 distinguishable sounds. Think about that. Second is aesthetic communication. We don't just talk to survive, we talk to express feelings and just connect for the sake of it. But it's that third one, syntax, that is the true game changer. Syntax is the grammatical structure that separates complex meaning from pure gibberish. It's the set of rules that lets you know, in a sentence like, Jessica, who was out for coffee with Rachel, was late to their meeting, that it was Jessica who was late, even though the word Rachel is sitting literally right next to the word late.
To achieve that insane level of syntax, our anatomy actually had to warp over time. Around 2 million years ago, we began branching off from other hominids. And over countless generations, our necks literally grew longer, and our mouths became shorter. This structural shift lowered the amount of air passing through our throats, which granted us this incredible control of our vocalizations. Eventually, a tiny flap of skin, about half the size of your pinky fingernail, evolved into what we now know as the vocal cords. And by about 50,000 years ago, current archaeological evidence suggests the very first human speech patterns officially emerged.
But this incredible biological upgrade, it came with a pretty major downside. This is a remarkably sticky piece of trivia. Because of how our throats reorganize to accommodate speech, humans are the only mammals on Earth that cannot swallow and breathe at the exact same time. It's a literal evolutionary trade-off, and playfully speaking, it's exactly why humans eventually had to invent the Heimlich maneuver.
Section 2, Animals versus Humans, the leap from signals to syntax. Now, what's really interesting about this next transition is the hard barrier between animal sounds and true human words.
Let's contrast the two for a second. Take a vervet monkey. When a vervet monkey sees a snake, it issues a specific reactionary alarm call that basically makes the rest of the group hide. It's an innate, natural meaning. But the monkey cannot return to the group later on and explain why it hid from the snake or, debate the pros and cons of different hiding spots. Linguistic communication, on the other hand, relies on conventional, agreed-upon meaning. And that's what allows us humans to reason, deliberate, and explain our actions long after an event has passed.
So how did those animal signals form in the first place? It comes down to a neat little mini narrative of cause and effect called ritualization. Take dogs, for example. Step 1. A dog feels aggressive and slightly opens its mouth as a physical cue that it's about to bite. Step 2. An opposing dog notices those bared teeth and learns to anticipate an attack, so maybe it flees. Step 3. Over evolutionary time, that physical cue of baring teeth permanently evolves into a widely recognized threat signal. It saves both animals from unnecessary fatal injuries. It's brilliant survival for sure, but it's not a language.
Section 3. From babbling to words, how infants replay evolution.
To really bridge the gap from those animal signals to our complex syntax, we don't just have to look at dusty fossils. We can actually look right into modern living rooms. Just observe how an infant's babbling builds step by step. They are practically replaying the evolution of language in real time. In the primitive stage, infants start with very basic goo and coo sounds. By the expansion stage, they are testing out marginal syllables. But the real breakthrough? That happens in the canonical stage, around 5 to 10 months.
Here, infants master the continuous rhythmic alternation between the open-mouth vowel and the closed-mouth consonant, producing resonant sounds like baba. This fundamental mechanical rhythm of opening and closing the mouth builds the absolute foundation for the final stage at 12 to 15 months, speaking their first actual rule-governed words.
Let's see how all this builds in Section 4, Geography Shapes Our Voices, the Environment's Acoustic Impact. Once early humans mastered the biology of speech, they started migrating. And that leads to a truly fascinating fact. The very air our ancestors breathed physically dictated the types of sounds their regional languages favored. Seriously. In tropical climates, the humid, heavy air perfectly accommodates vowels and softer consonants, allowing those sounds to travel easily through dense environments. But if you move up to mountainous climates, the thin, high-altitude air favors harder consonants and highly efficient ejective sounds. The environment literally sculpted the acoustics of human speech.
And as groups settled in these varying environments, physical isolation, created by massive mountains, vast oceans, and endless deserts, began to fracture human communication. A brilliant historical illustration of this is the Roman Empire. As communities of Latin speakers became geographically isolated from one another across Europe over centuries, their local speech variations drifted so far apart that they organically became entirely new languages. Yeah, that's exactly how we got what we now know as French, Spanish, and Italian.
Section 5. Empires, Trade, and Tech. The global spread of words.
From there, recorded human history takes the wheel. The most monumental leap during this era was the invention of writing. In Mesopotamia, Sumerians pressed wedge-shaped cuneiform into clay tablets. Over in ancient Egypt, hieroglyphs represented complex sounds and ideas. For the first time in all of human existence, knowledge, laws, and trade agreements could be preserved accurately without relying on oral storytelling. Human knowledge could finally outlive the speaker. It was a complete game changer. And as these literate empires expanded and collided, languages mashed together. We often think of modern English as a single static language, but if you look at its Indo-European family roots, it's actually a historical scrapbook of migrations and invasions. It has Germanic base, but it's infused with Norse from Viking contacts, heavily layered with French following the Norman conquests of 1066, and deeply rooted in Latin and Greek. It's a total mashup. But it wasn't just warfare and conquest driving this. Commerce was equally powerful. Whenever cultures swapped goods along ancient trade routes, they inevitably swapped language too. A really specific everyday detail that shows this perfectly is that English words like coffee and algebra were directly borrowed through historical trade contacts with Arabic speakers.
Meanwhile, completely independent of that Indo-European family tree, East Asia was developing its own highly distinct and brilliant written traditions. Mandarin Chinese characters evolved over thousands of years into a rich, complex system. Japanese adopted and ingeniously modified those Chinese characters. And in the 15th century, Korean leadership purposely created the Hangul script, specifically to be a highly systematic, easily accessible writing system for the masses.
So, the crucial point we should all take away here is this. Language is an unstoppable, living organism. It adapts to absolutely whatever social situation humans find themselves in. Even when vastly different communities are suddenly forced together, they will quickly develop a simplified pidgin to communicate. And remarkably, within just a generation or two, that basic pidgin will organically evolve into a full, complex, native Creole language, complete with its own strict grammar and syntax. We are literally biologically hardwired to find a way to speak to one another.
Which brings us to the ultimate provocative question for today. We've gone from ancient biological throat mutations all the way to 7,100 distinct languages spread across the globe, but now we're living in the age of instant digital translation and a hyper-connected internet. As our world shrinks, will those 7,100 languages slowly blend back into a single global tongue? Or will digital culture and new technologies fracture our communication once again, creating entirely new, unimaginable ways for humans to speak? It is a fascinating digital future to ponder. Thanks so much for exploring the incredible evolution of language with me in this explainer today.